Hello, this is Diane with Diane's Blue Hearts and Butterflies.com, and I fell in love with the designer series paper in the Stampin' Up! Catalog for called Thoughtful Journey, and some of my other people in my class loved it too, and when we wanted to make some fast kind of cards, and I was looking, and there are so many great ideas out there from so many different demonstrators. Some of the websites had measurements and some didn't, so I came up with some for the ones that didn't, and I appreciate all of those. I'm going to go through those people to acknowledge them as I go along, but it's using the Thoughtful Journey and also the Thoughtful Designs specialty designer series paper. Now these are found in the, where was it? Thinking it was the January to April mini catalog, and of course I lost my page. I could be wrong because it may be in the main catalog. Just let me just double check that real quick. So, oh, it is. So it is in the annual catalog, May through April 24 to 25, which is getting ready to retire and get a new catalog. But it's the Thoughtful Journey and then the Thoughtful Designs. There's also some pearls, and then there's a stamp set in here that you could use. I didn't have this one, but I had some other older stuff that I used for my class. But there's many other things. I did also use the Unbounded Love bundle for this one, as well as the Something Fancy. That one, I don't remember if it was in this one, but I used some of the dies and the stamps out of it. There's also this Unbounded Beauty that would make a great one to use for the flowers and stuff. I, again, just used what I had, but the Unbounded Love, Something Fancy. There was also this Thoughtful Expressions on page 127. There's a textured floral dies that it had to go along with that, and that's something that you could use for that is in the current catalog. But I always encourage people to use what they have. Also in the mini catalog, the one that I was going to mention is the Storybook Friends dies. They have some cute little frames that are in that one that you might be able to use, as well as several other flower dies. So this is some of that. Some of the retired stuff that I did use for this was the Flourish Thinlits, the Forever Flourishing dies, and then some other dies that I had from a long time ago. I also used words from Perennial Postage. The Forever Fern, I used the things out of there. Notes of Nature, I did use the flower out of this one. I also used the flower and some of the words from the Layering Leaves. And then I did use some words from So Sincere, a stamp set called The Right Words. And then, of course, I pulled out a very old one called Sweet Sentiments that I did use for some of the phrases and everything. So this is kind of a culmination of several different people. It's a kind of a box that you can put all these cards in and give it away as a gift. So let me go through some of this stuff. I think what I'll do is I'll start with the box. This was a, let me get my paper out here because I wanted to make sure I got the name correct. I could not find a last name, and I could not get over to the website called Rejoice and Create, but she has a YouTube channel, and her name is Darby, and she gave this in several different sizes and everything. I just really liked it, so I wanted to kind of go through this. The pocket that's created here, she used for, like, you could do stamps to give to people to mail their cards. I was also thinking you could make up several of the little labels that have different sayings, and then they could put their own label on. You could use that pocket to put those in there, whatever. So let me grab the stuff for showing how to do that. Sorry, got all my things over here. I've got a couple of them in here, so let me just pull all this stuff out. Apologize for the noise. Now the closure for keeping it closed, she did use a magnet, which is what I did, but she also talked about that you could use a ribbon to do that as a closure, and I'll kind of go over that too. Get out this stuff here and remove some of the extra. So I have the dimensions as well as some template to show how to score and how to prepare the cutting and everything for this over on my website. My website is www.dianesblueheartsandbutterflies.com is where my blog is. And you can view more of that there. So I'm not going to go over all of the stuff with you, but you are going to need the cover is a 10 by 3/8 inch by 6.5 inch. I used Calypso Coral because it was coordinating with the stuff that I was doing, and you scored it from at 4 3/4 from each end, and then you'll round the corners on all of those. The box piece that will actually hold the cards, this one is made from an 8 inch by 7.5 inch sheet of cardstock, and you'll score that in landscape. So the 8 inch side, which is actually this way, so you're going to score it at 3/4 of an inch, 5 1/4, and then 6. Then you'll turn it counterclockwise, and you're going to score it at 3/4 inch from each end. And like I said, the diagram of doing the cutting is over on my blog, but you will cut this piece just to the score line, then you'll cut down here and here, and then I'll go over putting that together in just a moment. The sleeve is made from the some coordinating cardstock. This one you will need something that is longer than a 6x6, so you can make it whatever you coordinates with it. This one was from another designer series paper that was in the catalog, and you'll need 10.5 inches by 5.5 inches. You'll score it in landscape at 6 1/4 and 9 3/4. Then you'll turn it to the portrait side, and you're going to score it at a 1/2 inch from each end. The front of the card will use the designer series paper for the Thoughtful Journey, which is 6 inch by 4 1/4 inch, and then you'll need another piece to go on the inside, the box part, and this one is 1 3/4 by 5 3/4. And so, like I was talking about, you could use a ribbon closure. She said to put that on here before you put anything else on this. And so you'll need to make sure that you have a long enough piece of ribbon that you can tie if you want to do that. I just am using a magnet, and actually a magnet and a washer. And I just got a bunch of these on Amazon and hardware stores. So you can find those just about anywhere. The pocket, it's going to fold. So this is the way that you did the first one. So you're going to fold that this way and then back. And then after you've cut off these two long 1/2 inch pieces, this is what's going to make the tabs that fold over to the back. And I just used tear and tape on the little flaps to hold those together. And you're going to want to go ahead and adhere that. Gotta get that part off. Peel off your backing. You want to make sure that it's stuck very well though. This is a double-sided adhesive tape, and you will just peel the backing off. This is very super sticky, which is the reason that I use it for these types of projects, is I want to make sure that I don't have them coming apart. Now, be sure that you do not put that tear and tape on this part that folds over, because you don't want to glue that down there. But you will fold that down and then fold it over to create the pocket. You can use whatever adhesive you want. If you want to use the tear and tape, that's fine. I just went ahead and put some, used the, and I'm going to forget, the Stampin' Seal Plus on here. You got to be careful with Stampin' Seal Plus, because sometimes if you have a loose part or it's not very strong, you can actually grab and tear, which is what I did here. Not having good luck today. Of course, I'm trying to do this standing up. So tear and tape may be the best way to go with all of this. I'm going to do that right now. Because, of course, the moment that you're trying to do something in a hurry is when it doesn't want to work. I'm just going to stick some right here. And then it's always good to kind of burnish, rub that down, and then it makes it easier to grab the backing to pull it off. And I'll get that pulled up here. I love using the Take Your Pick tool for that poke part. Now this is, oh, and I just did it, and I meant to tell you, the corner rounder is going to be anything that's going to be kind of seen on that edge, and I totally forgot to use it. So let me see if I can do that real quick on that corner, top corner. People who got the, ordered the kits from me, they, theirs is already going to be done that way, and I didn't do this corner. But you can also do that corner there. Then you'll stick this down on the front of the inside of the cover, the front part. The front part of the cover is where you're going to want to put your Designer Series paper here. Now, you'll want to make sure that you round the corners that are on the outside edge again to match up with the thing. You don't have to round the corners if you don't want to. It's not imperative. It just kind of makes it more look like more of a book. And then I just glue in this so that there's an even border around. Oh. And then we will do the box. Now I wanted to share some tips that I learned because I put one of them together, and because I folded the part on the inside, I don't know if you can see it with the light, but when I put my cards in, it keeps hitting those pieces that I folded inside. So I figured it out the next time I did it, and I decided to fold these two pieces on the outside. It still gives it kind of a finished look here, but it makes it so that when the cards go in, they're not hitting something. And that's the whole reason that I did it that way. And so the card kits that I'm sending out, the tear and tape that I put on it is already that direction made to put it, fold it that way. So get the tear and tape off of here. And it always sticks to me when I don't want it to. So I folded in the little part, the little one first, fold it over, and then I folded the other. So get those lined up with the score line and the end, and then you'll fold this one over, and then that goes right on over to cover over that little tab. And then this one, it doesn't really matter because I just wanted it to be more finished, so I made it where these would fold in and glue to the inside of the binding part. So the little end is where the binding is going to go on inside the little book box. Like I said, the moment you want something to come apart quickly is when it's going to mess up and stick to everything. So I folded these little tabs in and stuck it so that the score line goes to the end of this. This is the binding part, which is why I have the tape here and on the back, because this is going to be the book binding and it's going to stick on the cover where the binding part is. And so you're going to want to take off all of your tape and do that. The reason that I haven't adhered the magnet yet, I'm going to show you the tip that was shared, because it does make it a bit easier to put everything together. So let me get this tear and tape backings off if I can. And you will need some at the back of it to hold the back cover as well. You can put as much or as little as you want. So this is the part that's going to keep the cards from going out. So this binding part, you're going to want to hold your cover up and put that piece right at the score line. You want to make sure that before you set it completely down, that your up and down borders are right. And then you'll set it in there and you'll just rub where the tape is everywhere. And you can use your bone folder to get in here sometimes too and get that. So that is that part. Now to get of course I set it off where I can't see it. So I use a magnet and a washer. You can use 2 magnets, you can use Velcro dots, you can use whatever you want, but if you do Velcro dots, you're not going to be able to hide it up underneath like you do on the magnets. So what I do is I put a glue dot on my washer, and if you need a couple of them, you can do a couple of them. You just want to have it hold. This is going to go on up inside this little fold over piece, and you want it to be kind of in a little bit, not right at the edge, and then you're just going to push that down to get the glue there. Then you're going to want to make sure which way your magnet is going to connect to that, and then you're going to add a glue dot to your magnet. If you have solid magnets, you may just need 1 glue dot. Of course, my glue dot's going to fall off today because that's the way it's going to be. I'm going to add another one just in case, because my magnets have a hole in the middle. It's a little bit cold here in Nevada today, so things are just not sticking very well. But you will take this, so that's why we didn't put our designer series paper over here yet. It's because we're going to put this over here. And so this, you don't have to measure, you just fold it closed, and then you'll just want to make sure that you get something in there to separate that magnet and the washer. Because of course, like I'm saying, today is the day that it's cold, and so things are not wanting to stick real well, so my glue dots were coming off a little bit. So I'm just going to hold that there and give it a little bit of heat from behind, and then make sure that it still lines up, which it does. And then you can adhere the designer series paper to the inside of the box to decorate and to hide that mechanism for closing. One good thing about the Seal Plus is it does stick very well. So line that up so that you have your borders And then you'll just push that down all the way around. Get that adhered to this. And then that creates the box part. And then the decoration, I just used a coordinating piece of ribbon for this. And some of my, I can't think of what you call it, the dimensions over on my website. I mentioned certain colors, which I had to alternate and do some others because I ran out of some of the papers. So this ribbon, length of ribbon, I kind of tied it in like the hope. So the hope type shape. So you kind of just fold these two ends together and across, but you're leaving that loop there. And then I just adhered that with glue dots. So I put a glue dot on the back and found where I wanted it to go on the front of the card. And then of course I'm going to have to add another piece, another glue dot to hold that together where I want it. Of course it did not grab. Okay, fold that and put that, oh, of course, I grabbed it wrong. You know, just gonna give it a little bit more to hang on to. And then this is from the Unbounded Love, and it's this one here. And I found that one of my old punches, the extra large oval, fit just great on the inside of that. So that's what I did, is pulled out an old punch to create the inside piece. And then I'm going to stick this onto that other label part and put those together, creating that. And then I'm adding dimensionals at the back to hold that up. And this makes a great gift box so that we can give it to family and friends, anybody that you want. I mean, Mother's Day's coming up and everything. But this giving out cards is just a great thing that is able to be given to other people so that they can share and do that. So this is the box. And then we will move on to the cards. Get these other things out of my way. And for this, I'm going to bring over, we'll start with this one. I've got it as listed as card 4 on my website, but I'm trying to follow through with my thing. Now mine, I had run out of some this paper before I had ordered some, so I decided to just change this one up a little bit and add an extra thing to it. So, and of course, don't forget to stamp your envelopes. Makes them look really professional. But this one, I am using some old retired product that I have, but I created a colored base for the one that I'm showing you here, but on my kits, it's a light base with the darker Designer Series paper. This one is that Specialty Thoughtful Designs, and then because it's a dark card base, I made the a light layer for the inside. The big thing is you're going to want to, so the card base is a 4 1/4 by 11, scored at 5 1/2, so it folds kind of in a portrait type way. Then this Designer Series paper is 5 1/4 by 4. You'll have a 3 1/4 by 3 1/4 piece of colored cardstock that coordinates. And then the piece I did for my class, I left them whole because I started doing the card kits, and then I realized this is going to bother me that it's not in the order that it needs to be in case it got mixed up in the envelope, because I'm one of those OCD people that kind of likes to maintain its design. So the piece in the card kits that I sent out is 3 1/2 by I think it is, hold on. No, 3 inches by 2 5/8 inches. So the 2 5/8 is the height. And you're going to take that piece, because it's a whole piece, and on the 2 5/8 inch side, you're going to cut that at 7/8 of an inch. And you're going to do have 3 pieces, so to make 2 cuts. And then you'll end up with the 7/8 inch pieces. And then you'll take these, and these will line up on here. But I left them whole so that if you're one of those people that is bothered by the design remaining in order, I wanted you to be able to cut it yourself. And so I'm going to just adhere, and I start at either the top or the bottom, and I measured it so that it would create the same width on each side and the same border under the bottom. So you just kind of line it up so that that border is equal. And then you'll do the same thing with the top piece to get it lined up and equidistant. And I just add a little bit of adhesive. I just don't like my stuff coming apart. So again, you kind of line it up so that the border all the way around on the 3 sides is the same. And then you'll take the one for the middle and just basically get it even in the middle. Because I know if you're like me, even though people don't see it like we do, we sometimes see that we didn't get it, you know, exactly the same distance. And this one's a little bit of more of a distance. I should have probably moved it down a little bit, but it's still, that's gonna go on here. And then this was just a die cut that I did. This one was Forever Fern, I think. And I cut this out, and then I adhered this to here. And then the bow, you can tie a bow, or you can just kind of wind your ribbon back and forth and just use glue dots, and then you glue that in here, and then you'll glue your labels together. Stamp your messages and glue that. And then I adhered this with dimensionals on the back, and then some dots. These were from the Tencel gems that I had that matched this paper. And so you come up with the card that is looking like this. And then because mine is colored, I have an extra piece in the inside. But that is how to do this card. I'm just running through it really quickly just so that it's not taking too long. But you're more than welcome to stop and start and figure, you know, do it at your own pace. I just wanted to be able to provide the ideas. You can see all of the scoring and the dimensions of everything over on my website. So I do encourage you to go over there. There is a link from my website back to the YouTube video, and you can go back and forth and everything. So the next one I'm going to do is going to be, let me just go back because I had a handout at my workshop. So let's go to one that I called card 1. That is this one, using this Designer Series paper. It's such a pretty one. And I was able to make actually two cards out of this one sheet because I used another part to cut this one. So here are the supplies for this one to kind of just go over a little bit how I did that. So the base, I did do the very vanilla. It is again 4 1/4 by 11 scored in half. I did the stamping on the inside. The front, there's a layer that's 5 1/4 by 4 to go there. And then these two pieces, and you'll do that, adhere that one separately onto the card front. Then these two pieces, this is a Petunia Pop. It's 3 3/4 by 5. And then the Designer Series paper is 3 1/2 by 4 3/4. And then you're going to glue these two together. Let me just go ahead and do that real quick. So it shouldn't take too long as I don't tear anything again. And put this together. And then the linen thread, a good way to kind of figure this out is get a length over here that you would like to have for your bow or tying or whatever. Then you're going to wrap the linen thread 2 times. And then that leaves another length here, and you can bring it back and you can tie your bow. It's encouraged to do like a square knot first. That way, and if you need a little bit of extra ribbon, you can always readjust. I think I didn't grab enough to begin with. Move that. Bring this back over here. So a good idea to do a square knot first and then your bow. That way it doesn't tie on you. So you kind of get that first going that direction, and then you tie it again. I didn't match up my right over left, left over right kind of thing, but it's going to work. So you tie the knot and then tie your bow. It's simpler and faster, and you're not trying to tie a bow while you're holding it down. And then both of these were in the Unbounded Love designer series. Dies. Sorry. Good night. And then you just adhere these 2 together. And I used dimensionals again for the back of this. And you can put as many or as little as you want. I'm going to put a few to go over that knot, just so that it stays. Of course, I should probably put all this together real quick before I put it on. So again, just do it again. All right. It's not working for me today, so I'm going to use the tear and tape there. And a piece down here. The day that you want things to go well, but of course it doesn't. And so let me tear that off. Put that. I usually hold it up above to get my borders, and of course it's still messed up today. Let me see if I can roll that forward a little bit. Hopefully it'll do better. Maybe not today. I don't know why it's having issues today. Maybe it's because I'm trying to do this standing up. I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm in a hurry. There is a trick sometimes that you can use your heat tool and pick that piece up, because it heats up the glue, but I'm not going to worry about it today. And then you put your label across the front, and then I used you can put it in crooked, you can put it straight, however you want to do it. It's going to bother me, so I'm not going to do that. So then I grabbed some of these 24-26 resin dots, which are going to be going out, so if you want them, you need to get them. And I just used those to add the embellishments. And then again, I stamped the envelope to go with that. So let me move that one out of the way. And then we'll bring in this next one, which I did use the same designer series paper for. Most of mine were with using the Very Vanilla, but I did make this one with the white because I was using some other stuff that I had. So on this one, again, I had included a piece of paper in my kits that is just a solid piece. And this one, I just chose some blue paper that had like a blue sky. And this one is 3.5 by 1 3/4, I think it is. Hold on. Nope. It's 3 inches by 1.5 inches. And then I had the 1.5 inches at the top, and I cut them into 1/2 inch strips. So I got 3 of the 1/2 inch strips. This is the one that is 3.5 by 1 3/4. And I just kind of used the piece that I cut off of the other one, and I lined this up where I wanted it and kind of cut the top and the bottom and sides so that it would line up. And then this goes on a Misty Moonlight cardstock, 3 3/4 by 2, and that lines up and goes together. Let me see if I can glue those together, because I did want to show. Again, it's the linen thread, and you're wrapping it around this piece, but you're going to want to, well, I did. I have this vine that was on another die set that I had, and then I took the which reminds me, before I get too far, this was a very intricate die, and I ended up tearing a bunch of these that I was trying to get out of the die. And I remembered an old trick that someone had mentioned of using wax paper. And so I keep this in my crafting studio. I put this on top of the cardstock, and then I put my die on this. And then when you die cut it and then you take it out, this makes it coming out of the die a lot easier. So I just wanted to share that tip with you, because it did help me when I finally got this done. And then I did it in green, and then I did it again in the Petunia Pop. And then I just cut the flowers apart, and I lined them up with the flowers on here, and I just glued them on. I'm not going to do that right now. But once you've got this piece on, that is when you will put your linen thread. And again, you'll wrap it, leaving a tail at the front, wrap it 3 times, and then tie your knot and then your bow. And then I had these purple fine shimmer gems that I used. It had a really great color that went with that Petunia Pop, and I put those on here, and I just added those as embellishments. This label was out of that Unbounded Love, and I stamped the message here, and then I also used the dots from one of the other stamp sets I had, kind of speckles that I'd stamped in the background there. The card base is a normal 5.5 by 8.5, scored at 4 1/4. The inside piece is 5 1/4 by 4, and then I did 5 1/4 by 4 of the Moonlight for this, and then I had some specialty designer series paper from a long time ago that I just wanted to use. Kind of has a little shimmer to it. You can use any kind of background you want. It could even be a coordinating cardstock, but I used that, and then I placed this piece on here. Oh wait, before I did that, I had the little strips. The strips, I lined them up over here on the side, lined up with the white layer so that it would come over, and I just did those kind of in the middle. And you can put them as far apart or close together as you want, but I lined them up and glued them so that they were touching this edge and not touching this other edge. And then that's when I put this one over here, and then I put the label on with dimensionals. So it ended up with a card that looked like that. So that is the one that I called card number 2 on my blog. Let me move those. And then the last card, this one I wanted to do kind of a fun fold because I like fun folds. And this one, on my example, I used a smaller circle, but I did get out my 1 3/4 inch circle for my kits because I wanted it to be a little bit larger, to show a little bit better. So again, let me get out the pieces here. So this fun fold, it actually is just a flat card base, and then the part that opens is this. I've seen people where they take a folded piece and they just cut off these edges, and you can do it that way so that this is just a solid piece if you want. And then on this one I did put a border, but then I started looking at it and I didn't like that, so I wanted to do it a little bit different. So anyway, you have your card base, which is 5.5 by 4 1/4. Then you have the Thoughtful Designs, which is the shimmery kind of ombre look. And these pieces I have are 4 by 1 1/8. Now you can put them on and put your border where you want it right here, or you can hold off and do them in a minute, and I'll show you why. So this piece is another Mossy Meadow. This one coordinates with the base. This one is 3 inches by 8.5 inches, and you're going to score it at 4 1/4. This one is going to actually adhere to the center of this piece, and you can stick that down. And then if you want to, you can butt this piece right up against that, and then that way it looks like there's only the outer border, and then the inner border is what's created by a very vanilla piece. This one is 4 inches by 2 3/4 inches. And then that kind of creates that little bit of border here. Instead of having 2 borders together, you just have the one. Then this is the Thoughtful Journey Designer Series paper, and it's 2.5 by 3 3/4. And that fits right in here. And then I had another die. This one was from that Flourishing Thinlits, I think is what it was called. This was another one that I needed to use the wax paper. But I glued that across the front of this part, and I did use glue dots just strategically so that I could still open this and not have this glued down to the pieces there. This inner piece is the same size as the layer, so and I just stamped on that and glued that inside. Then this is a little piece of Petunia Pop. It's 2 1/4 by 1 1/4. I stamped the sentiment in Blackberry Bliss, and then I also had another stamp that I did in Petunia Pop with just some flowers. And then to create this, that's what I kind of wanted to go over here, and I put that right here. So you can color on any of your stamps, but you need to use the dye-based markers, the Stampin' Write markers, not the alcohol. The alcohol dries, it doesn't work, and it can stain your stamps, especially the photopolymers. But the Stampin' Write markers, I'm going to sit down so that I can do this a little bit better, but you just color the different parts of the stamp, the different colors that you want. So I took the stems and leaves, and I'm using a Mossy Meadow, and just color those parts with that. And it just takes a little bit, sorry. This one's got a little bit more stuff. You can do this with any of your stamps, though, if you want to have different colors on different parts of the stamp, and it works very well. Oh, and I just got some green where I didn't want it, so I'm going to try rubbing that off a little bit. So, and you can start with the lighter color first if you want, but then I'm coloring the flower parts in Petunia Pop on this one. And then this technique at least it used to be called, huffing. It's the only kind of huffing that I would recommend. And basically all you're really doing is adding some warm, hot breath to this ink to kind of get it wet again, sort of. You just kind of, and then you just stamp down onto your thing, and you come up with this great little thing, colored image that you're able to then use. And that's what I did for that. And these are the pearls that actually came with that Thoughtful Journey set, adhesive back pearl trio. And so you may want to grab those and use those before they may go away. So I hope that you enjoyed these ideas, and I hope that you'll share my videos and my blog with other people. That's how my channel grows, and I would appreciate if you enjoy this type of thing and you don't have a demonstrator, that you would shop with me and purchase your product, because that helps me, my website, grow as well. And like I said, over on my blog, I do have the templates and the measurements and everything. So if you want, you can go to dianesblueheartsandbutterflies.com to be able to review and get all this information. And I am grateful that you took your time to visit with me and watch me and enjoy stamping like I do. And hope you have a great time stamping. Thank you.